In this video, I'm going to cover how to take a piece of text that looks like this and have it go from a broken apart state and assemble into your finished piece of type. We're going to do all of this with just a couple keyframes using the random effector as well as the fracture object. To start, go ahead and open up Assemble Text Start. For those of you who are not in one of my classes, the important thing that is happening here is we've got an extrude NURBS object, and inside of it, each of these tiny pieces of text is its own separate object. And you can do this by exporting carefully from Adobe Illustrator. So you've got a piece of text that looks something like this. It's sitting inside of an extrude NURBS object. We've got a bunch of different paths. And what we want to do is give ourselves animation access to all of these using MoGraph. And MoGraph has an object specifically built for that purpose. It's called the fracture object. So go to MoGraph, fracture object, and what I want you to do is take all of the paths inside of this invade text section here and drag them into your fracture object. The easiest way to do that is to click on the first path, scroll down, and then hold down Shift and click on the last path. It's going to select all of them, drag those into your fracture object, and then drag your fracture object into your extrude NURBS object. You'll have an extra null object called invade text, which you can delete. And notice that you get three-dimensional text that looks exactly like it did before. What's cool about this, though, is that we can now use all of the MoGraph effectors to animate this text. So let's start by selecting our fracture object, which we do so that we know Cinema 4D, so that Cinema 4D knows to pay attention to this particular MoGraph object. And then we're going to add a MoGraph random effector. So go to MoGraph, random effector. What's going to happen is it creates a random effector. As you can see, it breaks up our text. And in our fracture object, it's added the random effector to our effectors list. And it did that because we had the fracture object selected. Now, our random effector, if you click on it and go to the effector tab, has a strength setting. And if you slide this down to 0%, you can get a pretty good sense of how we're going to go about creating this animation. The one thing that we're going to want to change is the size of our random effect, as well as the nature of the movement. Right now, the pieces are moving in all different directions. So go to frame 0, go to your effector, go to your parameter tab in your random effector, and see that you've got position, scale, and rotation settings. If you turn off position, it's no longer going to have an effect on the position, but we do want it to have an effect. We just don't want it to go up and down on the y-axis. And the reason we don't want it to do that is because some of the pieces are intersecting with each other. So if we set the y value here to 0, the pieces are not running into each other on the y-axis. And let's also set x to 0, so they're less likely to run into each other sideways. So really what we're doing is we're breaking them up along the z-axis. And if you increase the amount in z here until you don't really see any of the pieces initially, it's going to work really great for our fly-in. The next thing I'm going to do is add in some rotation. So turn on the rotation setting here and increase the value on H, or heading. And so this is having our pieces spin around their centers. And again, we're not using pitch or bank because we don't want these pieces to run into each other. Because whenever you have objects passing through each other, it really kills the realism. So I'm using a value of 360 for heading here. And we can preview our animation by taking this slider in the effector tab, the strength slider, and sliding it up and down. And you can get a pretty good sense of how this motion is going to work. So at frame 0, which you can get to by dragging the screen slider to frame 0, we want to set the strength here to 100%. So to do that, just hold down the Control key on your keyboard and click on this dot next to strength. Next, go to frame 70 and set the strength to 0% and add another keyframe by holding down Control and clicking. when you play through your animation, you should get this. Oops. And one more time. There you go. Simply using the fracture object, you can take any objects that you already have and then use your various effectors to create really complex and beautiful animations with very little work on your end.